What is my video about today? Well, hey, I think you probably already know. Here, I got my electrical outlet here. I'm going to replace this duplex electrical outlet in the wall. I'm going to replace that defective one with this one. If you want to watch that, stick around and I'll show you how. Now, what's the deal, Joe? If you were watching another video of mine and you saw this, you know that this particular electrical outlet is in fact working, but it's not working like it should. I've got this little thing plugged in there and it's for cats. If you have a cat pissing on your carpets at home, you might want to get some of this stuff that works really super good. You plug it in there, it shoots off an aroma. It doesn't shoot off, it just kind of weeps it into the room. You can't smell it, your dogs can't smell it. It's not going to affect your dogs. And if you have cats, it's going to affect them. It's going to calm them down a little bit, and it's going to prevent them from pissing and urinating on your carpets, on your electrical outlets, on your walls, on your baseboards, whatever. Okay? Try it. You might be pleasantly surprised. This is called Comfort Zone, and this was a value pack Mommy got. And it came with 6 of these little goodies, replacement cartridges, and it came with 3 tops. I don't throw these away every single time. I'll save them in case one goes bad. I always want to have a couple extras. This wasn't really going to be part of the video per se, but because I made another video on that. But since I'm right here, you see. Here's one of those cartridges there. You unscrew that, and this is a wick, and then you would. Here's your little deals. You would screw that on there, plug that into the wall. The aroma comes up on. But there's a table top that sits on there. See, here's a different one. The wick goes up through there, and there's a little platform up there. The wick goes up there, and then this top thing gets kind of moist, and then it's heated up with a little motor heater thing in there, and then it permeates throughout your room. It calms your cats down. Trust me, it works. And you see, this one here, I've got a little piece of napkin under there. See how it's kind of setting at an angle? It doesn't want to set in there straight. And I think it's because this electrical outlet is in the hallway. This condo is over 15 years old. See how this it just doesn't want to hold up there. And if you leave it like that and it's coming down at an angle, after you put it in, you feel under there 10 minutes later, this is going to be wet, and this is greasy, oily stuff. It's going to be wet, and what do you suppose happens? It drips down on top of your carpet. That's why this thing has to be straight. Like that. That's why I put that underneath it. See, but I don't want to leave it like that. It's not going to take me very long to replace this electrical outlet. This thing costs less than $1. I'm going to do it right. These prongs on here are going to be a lot stiffer because they're brand new. They're not going to be worn out from somebody plugging something in here 50 million times in the last 15 years. Because when they run a vacuum up here, where do you suppose they plug the vacuum in? It's real easy to plug it in here. There's no plugs down here low anywhere in here. There's one behind here. I'm not going to pull that out every single time. And in the bedroom, there's one over there. There's one over there. I'm not going to get over there. Here's one over here that I could use that one to plug in for my vacuum. But then my extension cord on the vacuum is not very long. I like to plug in here. Everybody else liked to plug in here before we moved in here too. That's why those prongs are really super loose. So even if you have an electrical outlet that's still working, if those prongs are loose, why don't you go ahead and just replace it? It doesn't take you very long. Maybe you only got 2 or 3 of those in your house. Different areas where every time you plug something in there, your vacuum, it always wants to kind of come out. It doesn't poke in there very well, and you have a hard time plugging your extension cord in there. Go ahead and replace your electrical outlet, even if it's not broken. But if you have a broken electrical outlet with where this ground prong goes in there, if that breaks, did you know this is a failed and a defective outlet? No inspector is going to say, oh yeah, that's still good, you shouldn't have to replace it. If an inspector came to your house to sell your house before you buy your house, you'll have a homeowner's inspection. The guy's supposed to check all that kind of stuff. If you're doing a remodeling job, your inspector comes, if he sees one of those broken, guess what? He's going to make you replace it, even if it's still working. But if your face is cracked, or if you're having a hard time with one side not working, you know you always have to plug in here because this side's not working, it's defective. Go ahead and replace it. Okay, that's what this video is about. Okay, so I am ready to replace this now. And the first thing I'm going to do is take my little electrical tester. I'm going to plug it in there. I've already turned this one off. I found the electrical breaker down in the garage, and then I tested this. Lots of times you have to kind of move this around back and forth. Make sure your tester's good first before you plug it into something, in case your light's not working or something like that. Make sure your tester's good so that you don't turn your breakers and you turn one breaker off and you check this, okay, yeah, it's off, and then you start working on it and you shock yourself, you mess up your tools, you scare yourself out silly when this thing pops on you and fries you. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to do. I never want to encourage anybody to work on something with power there, okay? That's the first thing you want to do. It's find the right breaker, back and forth you go, test it out, and then you want to remove this, okay? And the thing with this is this is an old school type of electrical outlet, and I always like to check that out first before I go to the store to get a new one, to see first off if it's like this or if it's the rectangular kind. The rectangular kind costs a little bit more. They're probably $3 instead of $1. Okay, and they're two different colors. Did you know that? You have an ivory color, which is kind of an off-white, which almost is kind of a light yellowish. Well, that's the old kind. Years ago, they only had one color. That was the color. Then they started going with white ones too. But then, if you're working in an old place, this condo is 15 years old. If these were off-white, I would have made note of that and then got an off-white electrical outlet to replace it with. Okay, so I always like to check that out and before. And so now let's see if you can see everything. Yeah, you can see all that. Yeah. Okay, now I'm just gonna before I take that out, what else can I do this? I could mark this with a felt tip pin if I wanted, or something like that, in case you've painted and you want this exactly where you want it. I'm just going to put a little mark above the screw behind the cover plate, obviously, and I'm going to try to center that like that, just to give me a reference point, so when I get ready to reinstall it, I'll know pretty much where to go. I mean, granted, you don't necessarily have to do that, okay? And now I'm going to unscrew this. And because if you haven't painted, see, before we moved into this condo, I repainted everything. So I took the cover plates off, I painted everything. But if you haven't painted, your cover plate may have to go in an exact spot. This might have to be adjusted to where you have to, you're going to want it in the same spot so that when you put your cover plate on there, it covers everything, right? Okay. And this mounting screw kind of came off. There's a little paper washer there that kind of holds the screw on there. I'm just going to kind of leave that off to the side right now. I'm going to pull this out, and I'm just going to go like that. Now, if you want, you could test this again if you're thinking, I wasn't sure. I'm putting it on the gold screw, putting it on the silver screw, and it's off, okay? And that's all you get. That's all you're going to do just yet. Okay, that's it. Just pull it out that far. I want to make this as simple as possible. Even if you've never done electrical before, I want you to know you can do it. You can do it on your own. If I can do it, an average Joe, you can do it. Okay, so on to the next step we go. Now let's take a look at this. Before I start willy-nilly starting to undo the screws, wires, and the screws and stuff, I want to first see how this is installed, because some are installed differently than others. And this one, I see that the black wires are looped around the screws. Those two black wires on those, and the white wires over here are looped around on the screws. And there's the ground wire looped around on a screw too, see? Now, there's 3 ways somebody might have installed this and mounted that. They wrap it around the screws in the same direction where you're going to tighten the screws, or maybe they don't have a loop on the wire, and it's just runs straight from here over, and then you tighten the screw down on that. I've seen some guys do that. Others use these holes in the back, and see, not the rectangular hole slot, but the round hole. And here's something to remember. Most of these electrical outlets on your walls like this in your bedrooms and stuff like that are 15 amp. And you would look on here and you would see a 15A. I don't know if you can see that or not right there. And there's also another place up here. It says 15A. Okay, and I looked and I saw that was a 15 amp too. And the funny thing on all of these, they were run with 20 amp circuits. 20 amp circuit breakers instead of 15 amp circuit breakers. Lots of times in your electrical outlet, your junction sub panel, you might see 15 amp breakers, 20 amp breakers. Find out which breaker this is on. If it's on a 15 amp breaker, that means you got 14 gauge wire onto here. And the 14 gauge wire can hook in on the back side. You can just poke it in. Okay, strip the wire back about 5/8 of an inch, a little bit more than that, poke it in the back. And on here, if these were poked in the back, I'd be able to take them out. I wouldn't cut the wires and restrip it and all that. I would just flip this sideways and take a little slotted screwdriver, you know, one really small like this one, and then I would put that in there and take it off, see? And you see here, I would take my screwdriver and push it right in there, and there's a little spring goodie there. As you're pushing in, you got to pull the wire out. It's kind of tricky to do, but you get used to it after a while. And then I could just use zip, boop, 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 and then I could take the other one, boop, 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 put it all back in. See? And I've got to look at that, and I'm just going to do the wires like for like, exactly how it is. And I always know that the black wires should always be on this side, which they are. If you notice, this side, the slots are shorter than this side. The shorter slot side is for the black hot wires, the black wires, or the, you know, and so you would flip this around and you would use this hole and that hole, okay? Not those two holes, because those two holes are for your white over here. The gold screws are for black wires. This is for black wires. Little slot for black wires. This is the white wire, the neutral side. Silver screws are for the white wires. You put the white wires in the back. If this was 15 gauge wire, this is 20 gauge wire, or 14 gauge wire. For 14 gauge wire for 15 amp breakers. But these are all in 20 amp breakers. So that's why they ran this. That's why they ran these wires on the side screws, because this is 12 gauge wire, and the 12 gauge wire nowadays will not fit in this little hole, because this is a 15 amp plug, duplex. And years ago, they used to have these holes bigger. You could put 12 gauge wire, 14 gauge wire in there. It didn't make any difference. Then years later, they thought, hey, we're not going to do that anymore. We only want, if you're going to use those holes, it's going to be for 14 gauge wire. But here, they ran 12 gauge wire, okay? So the 12 gauge wire has to go on the screw, okay? And that's why they've got it on the side screws, okay? And so I'm gonna do like for like. I don't really care how they wired this up. I don't care about anything because however the wires are, like this one here, I know if I look in there, I can see there's two sets of wires. There's two copper wires back in the box. There's two white wires, two black wires. Then they connected the two copper wires together, shoved that back in the box. You only got one copper wire coming, and it's attached to this electrical outlet on the green screw there, okay? And then the white wires, they got one on each screw, and the black wires, they got one on each screw. It doesn't matter on this particular one which black wire goes for what. But when we take this off, if you don't know any better, we'll do the top. We'll do the top to the top. The top black wire, we'll leave it on the top, okay? And vice versa. You know, there's reasons to maybe do it slightly different, but not for this particular electrical outlet, okay? Now, I'm gonna just start right now, and I'm right-handed, okay? And so I'm gonna do everything on the left first. I'm not gonna use my left hand or anything like that. I'm just gonna flip this over sideways like that so that I can get to this with I can hold everything with my left hand, and I can still use my right hand over here, okay? Does that make sense? So I'm gonna start undoing these wires over here, and I'm gonna get this ground. Lots of times these screws could be tight, and you just have to hold your mouth just right and get that unscrewed, okay? Be careful with that. You want to get your screwdriver off and shove it right into your palm of your hand. I've done that before. It's not very nice. Years ago when I was first starting, okay? Now, I'm just going to undo all these screws, the green screw and the two silver screws. Oh man, they got these on good. And the reason, you know, that it's over 15 years old. Now there's a back, as you're backing the screw out, you can tell where to stop. But I might end up undoing these screws all the way. We're just going to see, okay? If you do them hard enough, those screws will come out. And I don't care about the black screws right now. I don't care about that, okay? I'm looking at this side only, and sometimes I can just get these wires right off of there, and I don't have to undo the screw, okay? And you know, if I took my little screwdriver, I could take it like that and prop that off, pop it off, or whatever. Okay. Sometimes they might have this crimped over and kind of tightened, so you can't even take this off by hand like that. And if you don't want to mess with taking the wire, trying to pull it off, taking your wire strippers and trying to change everything, you could just take these screws right off. Okay? And that's what I'm going to do here. I've done this on a couple other ones where I thought I'm just going to undo the screws. Okay? You can do that. Ugh, I almost thought I got shocked, but it was just because I was pushing so hard. Come on. Boy. Okay, you're in luck. That one's not wanting to come. Well, maybe I can get a different screwdriver. These screws have an area for Phillips or slotted. I'm going to take my slotted screwdriver. Maybe I can kind of bear down on it and get that screw off of there. Here. Boy, See, the screw will come out. It's just harder to do that. Okay, or you can pull it off the other way. Okay, see how those are, I've already got those off. I'm not going to worry about anything else just yet, other than I want to get this copper line off, and this screw's kind of hard to come off too. Okay, it's not gonna come. I can take my little screwdriver, and I could have done this with the others too, and wedge it in there. Okay. Or see if it's crimped on the back, and if it is just slightly, I can slightly separate it with the bigger screwdriver. Let's see if I can get it. See, it's not very deep. You can twist it and separate it a little bit. Take your small screwdriver and you can pull that off of there. See how it's got a loop? I can make that loop a little bit smaller or bigger by just doing that, okay? All right. That's all I'm gonna do for right now, okay? Don't even worry about that. Okay? Top, bottom, ground. So what am I gonna do here? I can do two ways. I took this one off because I pulled that off. So now I can put that one back on. I could take these two screws off all the way and then hold them up there, line it up. It's kind of tricky to do, but it's easy. You know, you do it once or twice. At this point, if you want, you can take this and just pull out and make this just a little bit bigger so I can get it on the side. Okay? And because I'm going to leave these screws on this time. We'll take the other side screws off, okay? This is this side. I'm just undoing these screws, backing them off a little bit. Okay, until it feels tight, to give myself a little bit of extra room. I want to put it on like for like, okay? And so I'm going to start down here, and I might have to bend that just a little to get it on. And you want it going the same direction as you're going to tighten everything up. Okay, now I can kind of crimp that together a little bit and tighten that screw up. Okay. You want your copper wire going the same direction over your screw as the screw is tightening. That makes sense? Okay. Now I'm going to see, these white wires are, because they've already been installed, I'm going to have to kind of bend them a little bit just to get it over here, because I didn't take these side screws off. And you can do it. You just have to kind of look at it and see. I would actually do this slightly a little bit different. I would actually put this down this way and tilt this and get it on. See, I'm even struggling with this a little bit because of how it was on there from before and how all the wires are. But see, once I get it on there, then I can take this and pinch that together just a little before I tighten up this side. Okay. Yeah, you can see me. Hello there. If you don't want to do that, you just take these screws out and take the screw out and just hold it up there. You see? Then everything's all bent and everything's all lined up for your next bit. But see, because I'm doing it this way, I've got to reposition things. I'm not going to do that on the black wires. Okay, like I said, I'll show you a different way to do the blacks. I think you can see that. Okay. Make sure those screws are tight. Make sure your ground screws tight. Lots of times when you twist it back up, you know, like that, sometimes that ground screw gets loose. I've noticed every once in a while. Okay, so now that's what you're going to have so far. Okay, now like I said, we're going to do this side slightly different this time. Okay, I'm going to push this out of the way, and we're going to go for this. I'm just going to undo this side all the way, and we're going to do that next. Okay, how these are looped over around the screws, and so now I've got it. Oh, it's hard to see where I've got that. Let's put that over kind of like that. I think you can see that better. Can't you? All right. Okay. First, just going to loosen those up like that, and now I'm just going to keep unscrewing these screws and take them all the way out. Just take both of them out, okay? Just wrench on them. I can do that a little easier because I'm right-handed. See how those two came off pretty easy. I know that's the top, that's the bottom. Okay? Does it really matter? No, not really. It doesn't really matter which one goes to where, because this is a general standard electrical outlet. It would matter if it was underneath a kitchen sink and half of this plug was for your wall switch for your garbage disposal and half of it was for your dishwasher, because your dishwasher would always have power to it and your top would only be controlled by your switch on and off. At that point, if you're going to be replacing something, you would take this little side, this metal right there. You would take that with needle nose, bend that back and forth, because it's just a little thing right there connecting this bottom screw to the top screw. See, you break that off, and now you can have power just to the bottom, and you can have the top controlled by a switch, or the top just with power and the bottom controlled by a switch, however you do your wiring. But for this, I bet you didn't even know that. But for this, it doesn't really matter. We're not breaking that tab. So the top black wire, I could put that to the bottom. I could put the bottom one to the top. It doesn't matter. You see what I mean? And so what I'm going to do now is on this new plug receptacle, I'm going to take these screws out. Okay? I'm just going to undo them all the way. Just do it a little hard and it's going to come. It'll come. Oh, that went right down in the carpet. Almost couldn't see it. Okay. You can see I've got to put a little pressure on there. Okay? Now I'm just gonna twist that where it needed to be from before and fish my screw in there. That's got to be, oh yeah, okay. It's got to be over a little bit more. If this was around far further, and if you don't want to mess with taking it out and getting these out and twisting it and getting it back together, this is how you're going to do it. See, and I've got to. I'm having a hard time holding this and getting it over and everything. This little screwdriver happens to be kind of magnetic on the tip, but it's still. You just kind of hold your mouth just right, and eventually you'll get it. See? And if this is long enough, and if it doesn't look like the last person pinched together, if you can get something in there, needle nose, whatever, You can kind of pinch it just a hair and see, because it's somebody else's and because I don't want to undo the loop and redo the loop and make it longer and cut off some of the rubber, I'll just tighten it up right there, see? And I don't have to mess with it at all, right? Now I can do that with the top one. See how we know exactly where it goes. We didn't have to untwist the wire, do anything. If you want to take the screws out all the way and then fish the screws back in. And like I say, it's going to take you a few minutes to do it. Just be patient. There we go. Before I do it all the way, I'm going to see if I can kind of pinch those together. See, that one I could, just barely. That's going to help hold it on that screw. If the screw were ever to loosen up, let's say, or something like that. Okay. There. There. Now, just bend it back in about where it was before, okay, like that. Okay, so far so good. Is there anything you've seen here that you don't think you can do? I didn't think so. Now before I put that in the wall, let's just talk about this electrical outlet here for a second. You know, it still works. I could use this as an emergency one. The prongs still work, but the prongs were loose, are well worn off, and it feels loose in there. I don't think I'm ever going to want to use this electrical outlet again, and so I'm going to throw it away. But before I do that, what can I save on here? I could save the mounting screw and that little plastic goodie, couldn't I? You can unscrew it, or you can just pull on it hard, because sometimes it's, you see, it's just that paper cardboard thing. And you can save those little washers or not. You don't have to. That just keeps it from falling out of your electrical outlet when you're getting ready to install it or something. These little screws, am I going to save those screws? Nah, probably not. But I'm going to save this ground screw. You'd be surprised at metal boxes. You can use this ground screw, or if you have an electrical outlet that's your short of the ground screw, let's say. I say I'm gonna keep it, but man, this thing is hard to come off of here. I've got my pliers. I guess if I really want to take this off bad enough, I got a pair of pliers. I got my crescent. Man, look at that. Oh, do I want to screw that bad? Yeah, maybe. Oh, look at that. I twisted this thing right off. If I really wanted that, I could grab that and take that off. Yeah, you know, if that came off easier, I would save that ground screw, because you never know when you're going to need a ground screw. Okay, and then I'm going to save these little tabs. I can use them for washers later on. And see, there's a little groove right there. I just bend that and it comes off. I can use this for a little washer sometime, couldn't I? For something that doesn't really matter where it's at. You would pull these off if you were to install this electrical outlet in a cut-in box, let's say. You would take these tabs off, these little wings, and then you would install this into your plastic box, which your plastic box is going to be on the outside, a cut-in box, and it's got a groove right there, and then this shoves into the groove in the box. And then you can screw that down tight so your cover plate doesn't hit the wall. If you were to screw this on top of the plastic box, this sticks out of the wall further, and then your cover plate sometimes doesn't hit the wall nice. You see what I mean? I can just use these. I've used these. I can't tell you how many times I've used that little thing as a washer. washer that you're never going to see to shim something out, or you just need an extra little washer for something. And I think, hey, I know, I use this. I just throw that in my nail bag. Okay. Now, kaboom, I'm throwing that away. I'm throwing away my ground screw on that. I'm throwing away all these other little screws. Okay? I don't need that anymore. I'm keeping those two mounting screws, and I'm keeping the washers. Okay? Recycle whenever you can. All right? That's what I do. All right. Let's put this back in the box now. Okay. This one's pretty easy because there's no wire nuts down in there and all that. If there were wire nuts down there, if I had to push this and wedge it back in, I might actually take these mounting screws out so that I can push this straight in there. But because I've got some room and this box is not flush with the sheetrock. You know what it almost looks like? It looks like they didn't cut the sheetrock out beyond the plastic box initially, and the box is pushed in there cattywampus. Here's the edge of the box here. It's indented into the wall by about, I don't know, 1/4 inch. But on this side, it's indented over 1/2 inch because they didn't cut this out. If I were to cut this out further beyond the plastic box, I could reach in there with some needle nose and pull on that and re-wedge it. I don't have to do that. But I'm just saying, if I needed more room to push this in, because I want these wires pushed in there nice and snug, so I know that when I push the screws in there into the hole, it's going to suck it up nice without it hitting anything. Okay? I don't want these screws, I don't want this to hit anything on the back. These screws could strip out of the plastic box or anything like that. So now I get this lined up, make sure it's good. Now I can put it in that. See, I don't have much threads to work with here. Wow, that one's almost tight. I might have to. I should probably take that bottom screw out and put a sheetrock drywall screw in there, coarse threaded 1.25 inch. I've got some. And see, this one, once I get the screw in, it's only going to go in a little short while. And it could strip out. I'm kind of surprised that this bottom one wasn't stripped out of the last one. The threads are barely reaching the box because, like I say, the box is pushed in there at an angle. It's already 5/8, 1/2 inch in there. These screws are 3/4 or so long, and so I'm going to use a regular drywall screw for the bottom one, so I know that it's going to get stuck in there nice. See, this screw isn't that long, is it? 3/4 inch, maybe a little bit more. Okay, so I'm gonna find one of those drywall screws, and I'll be right back. All right, I found. This is an 1.25 inch coarse threaded drywall screw. And did you know you can use those for your mounting screws for electrical outlet? Yeah, you can. Okay. I'm gonna put the regular mounting screw for the top. See, it's only about a 3/8 inch long that's gonna fit in there, but it appears to be holding okay. This, I'm only gonna have 3/8 of it in. And before I get it all the way in there, I can see that this needs to be kind of pushed over that way a little. I want this to come straight out of the wall, nice and straight, so that when I put the cover plate back on, it's going to be flat to the wall. Okay. And I'm looking at the black bits, my felt tip pin that I had on there from before. And that looks pretty close to where it was. This thing is nice and straight, so when I put the cover plate on, it should be nice and flush on here. If it's not nice and flush all the way around, then you'll know that it's not pushed into the wall straight. See? Okay. It looks all nice. I can stand back, look at that, see if it needs to go over. If I need to, I can take that off, slide it over. The mounting brackets have little notches on them. I can move it over, but that looks pretty straight. Okay. There. Now, let's see if this fits in there straighter. You know, I can tell it's fitting in there better than this old one was really super loose. But I was hoping it was going to be better than that. I think these little apparatuses that's just the way they are. And it's kind of loose. It's kind of loose on that. And I would have thought they would have made those a little bit better. I'm not too happy with how those are. Because see, that's even at a slight angle. If I leave that there, chances are this is going to get wet and it's going to start dripping again. So I may have to use this forevermore. Something like this, paper towel, napkin, toilet paper, and just leave it pushed up in there. And that lines up perfectly. Okay. There you go. Now, am I all done with that? Not just yet. I've got to turn the breaker back on and make sure it works. Okay, I've got the breaker back on. You always want to check your breaker. Make sure the power is on before you call your project good. You don't want to walk away from this and make the assumption. And plus, when you turn your breaker back on, if your breaker trips, then you know maybe you did something wrong in your electrical junction box. Maybe one of your wires got loose if you're poking them into the back or something like that. See there? It's on. I know it's working. And I'm going to call that good. And speaking of breakers, if your breaker trips, then you're going to have to pull this apart and figure it out, try it again. And then when you get ready to turn your breaker back on, did you know on a tripped breaker, you have to turn your breaker off, then turn it back on all the way. And if you try to turn it back on all the way, and if it trips again, that tells you you're still something's going on with your work, okay? Finally, once you get done, you turn your breaker on and the breaker does not trip. You know you probably got it, but then still walk back here, put your tester back in there and check it out before you call it good. Then do some cleanup. You're not done until everything gets put back away. Well, that's all I got for this time. But I'll be back with more videos. And hey, I know you're just a beginner, and if you want to watch more of my electrical videos or any videos I have, I got all kinds of stuff to save you money around the house on how-to projects and repairs. Just go to my main YouTube channel page, then click on playlists. Look for playlists and click on there. And there's over 50 different topics I have on my channel. Go scroll down to electrical and any other electrical things. You can peruse my videos, see what types of things I have. In case you're looking like, oh yeah, I want to replace a regular light switch and put a dimmer light switch in there, or a lit dimmer switch, or a three-way dimmer switch instead of regular dimmer switch, or a light fixture, whatever it is. Look on those and I might just have what you're looking for. And if I can do it, you can do it. Save your money. Check out my videos and start saving money around the house. See you next time.